Yeah. Hey, everybody. This is my name is Zachary,
I'm Kim Hunter.
together we are the Fundivore. No, we have a business called the Fundivore here and in Mexico. We've been operating tours here. Our first one was in 2019, and I'll talk a little bit more about what motivated us to come down here at the beginning. And today we're going to be talking about our NAMAMX project, which is in partnership with North American Mycological Association and our good friend Ireri. Um, if you want to say hi, go for it. And we have with us also past president of NAMA, Dave Layton, who was an attendee last year at our NAMA MX 25 event, and he's going to say a couple things.
Okay, well, first I better correct that I'm first vice president of NAMA,
Uh,
president.
Got
Although president Barbara Ching was from Iowa also. I don't know what it is about Iowa, but anyway, yeah, this is a talk is called a shared purpose in a sacred land. The reason I guess I'm here is because I was on the bus when that name
it.
created by those of us on the bus as we were heading up into the mountains. It's not anyway. It's not technically a cloud forest, but it was every bit as beautiful, and the beauty that we were encountering and the time that we were having all together really caused us to kind of come up with that name, that we're on a shared purpose in a sacred land. And I think that as you learn more about the Mexico forays and how they've been progressing, I think hopefully everybody on this video will get a sense of that shared purpose and want to visit a sacred land. So I think I think Zach's already introduced Ireri Monter and of course Ken B. A lot of people have met, and he's just here hosting for us. Trent was not able to, Trent, our president. And so I think I should just turn it over to Zach right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. Yeah, before we really start kind of talking about the event and this year and sort of what we've done in the past years, I thought we would do a little bit of a Mexican overview because there's a lot of confusion about Mexico. And probably first and foremost, we should address what happened this week in Mexico. It was a pretty shocking Sunday this last week. For those who aren't aware of the full details, the Mexican government in an attempt to capture one of the most wanted cartel bosses here in Mexico, ended up killing him, and Mexico responded pretty shockingly. Mostly, it was burned out cars and vehicles that were had been carjacked and were blocking highways. But there were no civilians that were killed, and as of Monday morning, Guadalajara was back on with traffic, and it was about a 24-hour convenience. Where we are down in southern Mexico is about 1,000 miles away from where the main action was. Oaxaca is about 800 miles away from it. And so if anyone does have any questions and wants to get more detail personally, please reach out to myself or to Iriri, who's, can speak to this as a Mexican as well. And it's not going out of our attention, but it's definitely something that it's not uncommon in Mexico. It was fairly extreme, but I just want to put that out there first and talk about that and say if anyone does have any questions, please reach out. So Mexico is a huge country. As I just said, we're about 1,000 miles from Guadalajara down here in Chiapas, where Kim and I live. And a lot of Americans sort of know Mexico as beaches. But as you can see, Mexico is a continuation pretty much of the Rocky Mountains from all the way up into Canada. And unlike Canada and the US, it is almost only mountains. And as a result of that, it has a massive amount of ecosystems. Mexico is made up of 31 states, plus the Mexico City, where Iriri is coming to us live from. And our focus is in Oaxaca. Oaxaca is known for a lot of things, and one of those happens to be mushrooms. This is the state of Oaxaca. It's actually larger land area than the country of Costa Rica. And it itself is one of the most biodiverse states in all of Mexico because it goes from almost 12,000 foot elevation down to sea level, both in arid coastline and in the jungle north up to the top there. You can see the relief map here. Those mountains are above up 10,000 feet where you see the white. This is Oaxaca is a lot of mountains. And then down to Tuxtepec in the north, which is actually one of our mycologists will be coming from this area called La Chinantla. That's more of a jungle area. And down on the coast is more of an arid area. And so you kind of have everything in between as well. So from tropical forests up to the desert scrub to montane forest to mixed pine, lots and lots of oak trees here, which means a lot of mushrooms. Mexico is actually a mega diverse country. It's one of the top 5 countries. It kind of switches places with Colombia, Peru, and I believe Brazil and Ecuador. All of these countries have extreme high mountains and also all the way down. They're in the tropics, so it goes down all the way to sea level. And like I said, everything in between from cloud forests to deserts to phenomenal pine forests and old growth forests as well. Mexico actually has more pines, more species of pine than anyone in the world. This is in Spanish, but I'll do it for you. Second in reptiles, third in mammals, and this is global. Fifth in amphibians, eighth in birds, and has 10% of the world's ferns. And for those who are interested in learning more about ferns or helechos, you can check out Oliver Sacks' book, Oaxaca Journals. That one is Oliver Sacks is actually a neuro scientist, but was also in a fern club and came to Oaxaca and I think documented over 400 types of ferns from the top down to the bottom, and talks about his adventures in Oaxaca some decades ago. So as I said, Oaxaca in Mexico has more pines than anywhere else in the world. And Oaxaca has about 10 of those 10 species of pines up in these mountains that we'll be exploring, as well as an insane amount of oaks. At this point, Celestino has told me 150 plus. They keep finding new ones. The oaks are all interbreeding and creating more and more interesting trees. You'll find madrones here. It's the Madrone cubensis. It's from Cuba. You have fir trees, birch trees, mahoganies, tons of different acacias, and just unbelievable variety of trees. And as you get into the cloud forest, I was told one of the markers of the cloud forest is that you cannot count the number of species of trees that are so varied. And Dave, it turns out where we were is not a cloud forest. I've been now to the cloud forest, and we'll talk a little bit about that. This is actually at the top in Cuajimaloyas, a mushroom town. You can see the elevation there at one of the lookouts. And we're actually looking out. I don't know if you can see my pointer, but we're looking out almost due towards Ixtlan, where the NAMA event will be up this valley and towards those mountains way off in the distance there. There are thousands of insects here in Oaxaca. These are all my pictures that I've taken as we've been in the forest there. Stunning moth selection last year at our NAMA event. And this is important because the culture of Mexico actually has utilized, or culture of Oaxaca and the rest of Mexico too, has really utilized these insects to be a vital source of food. And some of them, like these ants that I'm holding on the lower left-hand side, come out of the ground one day, maybe 2 days out of the entire year. But they form a pivotal ingredient for the Oaxacan cuisine, which of course is amazing. You may know Oaxaca for its mezcal as well. There are almost 50 species of endemic agave in Oaxaca. This is our friend Octavio there in the bottom. He actually made the mezcal for our wedding when we got married in 2022. And these are traditional up in the upper right. That is a traditional way. It's a clay distillation process that either is 3,000 years old from Colima or comes from the Philippines. Still up for debate as to how old distillation is here in Mexico, but at least 500 years They've been distilling mezcal and spirits. For those who don't know, tequila is a mezcal, actually. It is a distilled beverage made from the agave. In Oaxaca, they make mezcal from something like 47 different types of agave, and there should be some opportunity to be trying some mezcal while we're down here. They've made needles and suture threads as well with the agave needles. This plant has played a really, really important role to the Central Valley people of Oaxaca. In addition, this is a very old culture. They are well versed in fermentation. Mexico itself has over 16 fermented beverages that actually have a lot of variants as well, and Oaxaca has several of those in the market. This is something you see very commonly: tepache, which is actually fermented pineapple skin, and pulque, which is another agave and is actually the fermented sap of that agave. Kim and I had an opportunity to go down and harvest some of that here in Chiapas, and it was very, very cool. Oaxaca is old. I mean, and we're talking about, these are 12,000-year-old cave paintings. These are also my photos. These caves are in Mitla in the central valleys of Oaxaca. And they have found, so teosinte is the original plant that was cultivated by Mexicans to turn into corn. And in this cave, they have found that in between teosinte and corn in these caves. They have found 10,000-year-old seeds for pumpkins, which are also endemic to this area. There's some amazing cave paintings here. If you stick around in Oaxaca at all, we're more than happy to hook you up with Avilia, who's the community manager for these caves. A wonderful, amazing thing to go and see that very few people do go and see. So just one question I've had is, we hear a lot that the Chinese were the first to cultivate edible mushrooms. And I have this feeling, I found this paper, and they say around 10,000 years ago, around the time of maize cultivation, the Huitlacoche saw a major bottleneck in the speciation, and that the ones that are used still for food to this day basically got selected for about 10,000 years ago. And I just wonder if the Mexicans and Oaxacans weren't the first, actually, by about 8,000 years to be cultivating edible mushrooms in the world. So just something, food for thought. Speaking of that, Mexico and Oaxaca in particularly is known for its food. An Infinite Gastronomy is actually a title taken from a Diana Kennedy book that goes through the 8 regions of Oaxaca. And here's some traditional cooks, cocineras, preparing on the comal and in the ollas in the background, some tamales made with some mushrooms that we harvested in Ixtlan. If you would like to learn more about this family in particular, I highly recommend watching The Reluctant Traveler, Season 3, Episode 1. It is all about our friend Sam and kind of goes through what Day of the Dead is here with regard to his mother, who's right here in this picture, who passed away a couple years ago. Phenomenal episode, really heart-touching, and also just really revealing about Oaxacan culture. Sorry, I really love that woman. And here on the right is actually one of the meals we had in Ixtlan. We dive right into the cuisine as part of this adventure, because you can't talk about Oaxaca without talking about food, and we bring on some really incredible chefs with us. Ireri will introduce those folks a little later on when we start talking about this event coming up specifically. I did want to give a shout out real quick to some of the chefs that have really pushed things forward in Oaxaca. Up on the left is Ariadna Pinacho. She's up in the Sierra Sur Mountains, and that is actually her parents' place with the mushroom hut that you see right under her. It is absolutely a stunning place in the clouds, tons of mushrooms, mushroom themed everything, and she is a really accomplished mushroom chef that is taking other dishes and other culture, other cuisines, and sort of melding them with Mexico and with the mushrooms, and has a restaurant that is ingredients of the forest. In the middle here, Rodolfo Castellanos Reyes is a chef in Oaxaca who has been renowned for many, many years. One of his dishes, which I have in a couple slides to show you the full thing, has 7 different mushrooms in it. He was with us last year and is the chef of Orehen, a really major celebrated restaurant in the city of Oaxaca that we will also be dining at. And then Talia Beros Garcia recently received a Michelin star for her restaurant restaurant Levadura de Olla, and has been really instrumental in bringing the food and culture from where she is in the Mazatec area of the Sierra Sur into modern gastronomy and really bringing Oaxaca sort of into the global cuisine world as a recognized and important cuisine for the rest of the world. I just had to show this dish again. I just think it's just one of the most phenomenal things, obviously during mushroom season, and absolutely love Rodolfo and his food, and really excited to share that with you guys. Oaxaca itself is, while it has 528 municipalities, I believe, it's divided into generally 8 regions. And we'll be spending most of our time in the Sierra Nortes, and then, of course, Oaxaca City is in the Valles Centrales, as are those caves. And the Sierra Nortes are generally a Zapotec region. The ethnic diversity is sort of split along those lines as well. There are 16 linguistic groups within Oaxaca. Some people say there are 16 countries within the state of Oaxaca. Celestino recently took us up to the Chinanteco area in the tropics, and he himself said, "I feel like a foreigner, and I'm from 120 kilometers up the road." And he's like, I don't recognize the language. I don't recognize the food. I don't, it's really amazing. We'll have Dr. Alexandra will be with us, who's from the Chinantla area. He just recently got his PhD, I think, just a week ago. So that's really exciting. We'll have someone from the Sierra Sur and hopefully from the Mixtec as well to sort of bring out a wider range of what Oaxaca is and just how vast this place is. Now, the main one that you're going to hear a lot about is the Zapotecs. In fact, we are going to go visit Monte Alban, which is down here on the lower right. This is, I think, 8% of the entirety of Monte Alban there. Absolutely just a staggeringly massive city, but not at all the only one all through the valleys. As you can see, this is the Central Valleys. So if you look here, the Valles Centrales, this map is basically the Valles Centrales, and you can see that there are ruins of the Zapotecs all through the valleys. Their history, Monte Alban was first flattened starting around 500 BC and existed into the 800s AD. So it was a 1,300-year long city that existed. And throughout that time, a lot of these other places evolved as well. It's really important to know this stuff because these guys have been using mushrooms for thousands of years. They have a full language for the mushrooms. They know all the parts of the mushroom, the ecology of the forest. They understand how to keep these things sustainably. This is a paper actually written by Dr. Roberto, or headed by Roberto Garibay, someone who was with us at NAMAMX 23 and absolutely blew our minds, and has been talking about wanting to come back. But there's also the Mixtec civilization. You notice some of these are the same ruins. The Mixtecs were just on the other side of the mountains, and sometime in 1100 or so AD came over the mountains and sort of blended with the Zapotecs through marriage, through kingdom unities. It wasn't like a conquest as much, and then continued to build on a lot of these ruins, including in Mitla. Montenegro is actually 1,000, up in the upper left, is 1,000 years older than Monte Alban. And this is just scratching the surface. On the Mixtecs, it goes all the way into Guerrero and up into Puebla as well, like a massive civilization that existed even beyond the borders of Oaxaca. And the Mixtecs actually have a very developed sense of mycology, having up to, I heard most recently, 52 different medicinal mushrooms that they use specifically for the same purposes that a lot of the medicinal mushrooms or functional mushrooms are being pushed today. This is a paper that is Dr. Jesus Moreno Perez Moreno is just a gentleman and a scholar. This paper really documents just how developed the mycological knowledge, the language around mushrooms was for these folks. And in fact, what we learned that was from down here, right? The 5,000 years of the same name. But Mixtec, there's a lot of, they call these language groups. There's a lot of variations on this language. The mushroom, the Caesar's amanita locally, all of the Mixtec languages have the same name for it. It's how long it's been around and how common it is as a traded mushroom in the area. This is Itai Bailin Bautista. She actually started really bringing attention to the Mixtec region when she was like 15 years old. This year, Mushroom Festival that she puts on will be celebrating its 11th year. And she developed the Ruta Hongos Mixteca, which is, I think, 12 or 13 different communities that she works with. She both sources mushrooms for the restaurants in Oaxaca as well as does mycotourism herself. And here's some of the names in Mixtec of the various parts of the mushroom as well. And we hopefully will have Bailin join us for some of the time that we're in Nama. We're still waiting to hear back from her, but that would be really awesome. Uh, Oaxaca's been using mushrooms a long time. You know, edible mushrooms, obviously, medicinal mushrooms we just talked about. Spiritual side of mushrooms I'll talk about in a second, but you can tell the psychedelic mushrooms are sort of associated with Mexico for a good reason. And then there's this ludic thing, which was actually in the paper I just showed you on the Mixtec. This is like enrolling children to throw earth stars at each other to get them to have fun in the forest. You know, it's like play without ludic means to play without purpose. And there's documented evidence of the basically teaching the children to appreciate and look for mushrooms just by playing, just who can collect the biggest puffball or whatever you can do with that. I just thought that was a really cool that they actually have documented use of like bringing the children into the woods, both metaphorically and literally. Um, so Oaxaca is known for its psilocybe use. It was actually one of the first area that was documented as, or it was the first sort of area that got a lot of attention for its use of the psilocybe mushrooms. And there's a lot of groups. The Mazatecs that I'll talk about in a second were the main group that got the attention in the 50s. But there's 11 different mushrooms that have been very commonly used throughout all kinds of cultures, throughout many of the different regions of Oaxaca. And they each have their own name for them as well, and have different uses and different ceremonies and different customs that go along with those. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I did want to talk about this particular event that occurred in the 1950s. In 1954, Gordon Wasson and his wife, who was a mycologist or an amateur mycologist interested in studying the cultures, or ethnomycology basically, traveled to Oaxaca and met Maria Sabina. Some of that history is pretty well known, but basically promising not to tell anything about what she had told them, published a story in Life magazine 3 years later, which ended up blowing Oaxaca up and the idea of magic mushrooms. And Maria Sabina was sort of the first example of what happens when people get a little too excited about mycotourism. The foreigners rushed in and sort of took over the small town that she was from. She was actually ostracized. Her house was burned down, and is not a very happy story for her in particular. However, in the years and decades since, she has been turned into a mystic. She's actually now considered one of the grandmothers of bringing the mushrooms to the consciousness of the world. And you'll see Maria Sabina spots in Sierra Sur, where she's not even from, but her name is all over Oaxaca now. There are murals of her all around the city and in some of the towns as well. And so, it does have a happy ending. Everybody in Huautla de Jimenez is related to her now and is happy to take you on a journey.
And Dr. Mara can speak more to that.
And Dr. Mara
She's done research in that
yeah,
area.
and Dr. Mara can speak specifically on that. So to say that fungi culture in Oaxaca has been going for a long time is not an understatement, and it still is thriving. There are a ton of mushroom festivals. A lot of groups are putting out posters from their areas and from the various regions. You'll see murals dedicated to the importance of mushrooms. This one in particular is from San Esteban Ataulca in the Mixteca, where Itai's festival will be in July. It shows a young girl picking one of the local amanita mushrooms, and I just love the backstrap loom sort of falling through her into becoming the corn in a basket as well. It's just the symbolism and the understanding of the ties of culture are hard to put into words, and murals do a wonderful job of that. So I mentioned Cuajimoloyas. This is actually where it started for us in 2019. We came down here for our very first mushroom event and came to the Cuajimoloyas Mushroom Festival, and we're just blown away already at the mushroom culture. And I believe up until, in the 2000s, there were what, I don't know, 10 or 15 mushroom events in Mexico. I think Ireri mentioned last year there were 375 or so mushroom events throughout Mexico. And we're talking in a pretty small window of time. There's July, August, September, possibly into October, and something like 300 some events. I mean, to say that it absolutely exploded is not an understatement, and for good reason as well. There's a lot of new and interesting things to see here in Mexico, because it's quite understudied. So there are a ton of festivals here, and any weekend in those months that I mentioned, July, August, September, somewhere in Mexico, there's probably 3 or 4 different festivals happening at all the time. These are some of the festivals that we've been to. They've been really phenomenal, not dissimilar to mushroom festivals that you have been to in the US with ID tables and lectures. There are some parades, mushroom costumes. So, what has really been amazing for us here is that kind of shared geekery, that shared purpose really melts away any kind of that the lost in translation or the cultural differences when you're seeing a new mushroom that no one's seen. Everyone is around it being like poking at it and looking at it and thinking, oh man, this is so cool. In 2022, we actually got to attend the Congreso Nacional de Micologia, or the National Conference of Mexican Mycologists. That was down here in Chiapas, where Kim and I now live, and is where we met several of the mycologists who have joined us for NAMA. It was quite an amazing event. Ireri was there as well, and that really like boosted my intention of really understanding what's happening here in Mexico on a mycological perspective as well as the cultural perspective, which kicked off a random conversation Ireri and I had in early 2022. I was like, hey, maybe we should try to do this thing. And we did. And NAMAMX 23 was born. We did that in the state of Mexico, in Valle Bravo. We repeated that again in 2024. Just an amazing cultural exchange, sort of feeling out what we culinary, gastronomy, vouchering, working with some of the local groups up there as well. We focused a little more on the Picaco community, community that Ireri works with very intently, to sell the mushrooms into the restaurants in Mexico City in 2024. Last year in 2025, we just had a phenomenal time for our first time in Oaxaca. And we're doing that again this year and sort of refining even more what we're trying to drill into. So really, really excited to come back to this area of Ixtlan. This is actually an article from The Guardian from about a year or 2 years ago that talks about the forest management happening in Ixtlan and in the neighboring communities. Phenomenal article that actually features one of our guides, Samuel, who is quite young at the time of the article, but has now really evolved into being a mushroom-interested nature guide. He will be with us during our time there. So where is this place? So Ixtlan de Juarez and Copolalpam are sort of dual cities in these mountains up here, and we'll be exploring just in this little area. You'll be amazed how much we find, and then going up to about 10,000 feet or so in the what I'm calling the above the clouds forest, and really seeing everything in between. You go from mixed pine and oak up into scrub, up into some other like oak, really interesting deciduous and oak forests. It's a phenomenally small area for the amount of diversity that you see. I'm just going to take you through a couple times. We've been coming to Ixtlan now for 5 years. And it's been a pretty amazing year after year of what we're finding up there. This is a small selection of the edible mushrooms that we are finding, including some interesting craterellas that baffled the lower ones on the lower left. Actually baffled our mycologists last year. These are some other that one of them, I believe the center sort of brown one is now Craterellus undulatus. And some of the other ones are still considered pseudo-craterellus, but we'll see what's happening. There's a lot of movement in Latin binomials, as there is everywhere, and especially in Mexico because so much has not been officially studied yet. And then, of course, all of this is happening at Ecotour Ixtlan. It's a phenomenal conference center with cabins. You can see this is an example of some of the cabins that we'll be staying in. It itself is over 40 acres of mixed pine and oak forest, absolutely full of diversity of every kind. We've had a wonderful time there every time we've been. And so that is what brings us to talking about the event this year. So NAMA 26 is a return to Ixtlan. This year it's going to be happening September 6th through 13th, 2026, both in Oaxaca de Juarez, the central Oaxaca City, and primarily up in Ixtlan de Juarez, up in the Sierra Norte Mountains. It's a partnership that's been going on now for us, Kim and I, the Fungivore, the North American Mycological Association, and Ireri from Symbiosis. So I'm going to turn this over to her now, and she's going to, as our program director, talk a little bit about what we can expect or what we should be counting on this year.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. I was reading, well, first of all, there's a lot of people here, so I'm super excited about it. And also, there's a lot of places of the United States that you're here, so thanks so much for connecting. I'm in Mexico City, and yeah, I know, this weekend, the news, and Canada as well, yeah. The three countries, that's cool. But yeah, I know the news at the beginning of this week in Mexico wasn't the best, but we had really good things like forests and animals and stuff. So yeah, let's concentrate in those things. But yeah, we've been working on this for the past 4 years. So basically, as Zach said, Mexico is a mega diverse country, but also our mega diversity came from the biocultural richness that we have. We're a country that we're deeply connected with our biodiversity. Basically, I always love to say that the Earth is an agrosystem because there's no place in this planet that it's without humans, planting or cultivating something. So Mexico is basically like that as well. So also another thing that it's super cool is that we have 68 indigenous groups, and we basically having in our daily, and also we just realized that we have 450 species of wild edible mushrooms. So yeah, we're a really interesting country here. And also, on the slide that Zachary showed about the NAMA, the shape that you saw, that's Mexico. So basically, we made this art of the mushrooms that we're representing per state. So if you came to the NAMAMX, you're gonna have really cool stickers with that shape. So think about it. But well, about the program, since the first time that we made NAMA, we tried to make a relationship between academics, amateurs, common people, communities, and well, NAMA. It was the first time in 2023 where NAMA and the Mexican mycologists connect. So I think that we were doing really great because we're all excited to have a space where we can interact and learn about mushrooms. So basically the program, it's changing every day, but in the same flow, what about Mexican mushrooms? What about ethnomycology? And then we go to the topic on the place that we are. So basically this year, the last place, we're gonna, well, I went to Vermont the last year, so I learned these things like chief mycologist, chief. So now I can apply it for our foray. So basically, we're planning to have our chief mycologist, one of the most important mycologists of Mexico and ethnomycology, that is Roberto Garibay Origel. he has a really huge program right now with the National Autonomous University of Mexico about mapping the fungal diversity of Mexico in an atlas. So he's gonna basically teach us about how to document the soil, because like once he said that we never thought about that soil is alive. And well, basically he's studying. Then we're gonna have the return of our ethnomycologist, that is the Doctora Mara Haro Luna. She's been working with communities from actually Jalisco, that is this zone that was like really with bad news in this week. But if we go to the good one, Jalisco has like deeply interest into mushrooms with the Wiraritaris, that it's an indigenous group. And then Mara started to work with how to understand like the knowledge of the communities, but in an ethical way. So basically, she's gonna speak us about ethnomycology, but also ethical codes. And she's also working with Fungi Foundation, so maybe she's gonna tell us like really great things about it. And then we're gonna have our voucher manager, that, to be honest, is one of the like most intelligent people that I know in my life. He knows a lot about mushrooms, but a lot. Like basically, if you go with the most random mushroom, he's gonna say like with his little glass, like, oh, this is this species. So you need to reach this opportunity because he knows a lot about mushrooms. And he's the Dr. Andres Arguelles Moyao. He's gonna speak us about diversity, ecosystems, and why Mexico is a global mycological hotspot. So yeah, we don't have bad news. We only have mycological news here. So the next slide. We're also gonna, like this year, we're gonna put all the efforts into recognize the Oaxacan zone, like the Oaxacan things. So basically, Timo Mendez is gonna tell us like the introduction. Yeah.
Actually, I got a message from Celestino. Celestino and Timo and several of the local scientists have been documenting the biodiversity in the Mancomunados, which is a region of 9 communities, actually right across the river from Ixtlan. And Celestino is presenting right now his new book that they've just put out, 253 pages, that now includes mushrooms. The previous book did not. And Timo is the lead mycologist for that project for this region. So it's really, really awesome to have him coming with us.
Like the superstar mycological event in Mexico. So yeah, like go for your play. So yeah, basically Timo is gonna give us an introduction about Oaxaca. Like Roberto, Mara, and Andres gonna speak us more like Mexico as a country, but then we're gonna have more like Oaxaca, mushrooms of Oaxaca. So we're gonna start with Timo, and then we're gonna have a panel, and this will be like really interesting because we're gonna have like people from the different zones of Oaxaca, the different regions. So you're gonna see that probably you only know mushroom to speak about fungi, but they have like a lot of common names, a lot of systems, but they also recognize their mushrooms in their like own vision. So that's really interesting because they recognize like the mushroom as a kingdom before maybe the mycologists recognize it or the biologists. So we're gonna learn a lot about there. And I'm reading here in the chat about Mexican cuisine. And well, we're gonna have one of the best of the best of the best. If you came to Mexico City, you have to go to his restaurant, and I swear you're gonna have one of the most wow experience ever. But well, he's Joaquin Cardoso. He's a really good chef, but he's also a really good nerd. So basically, he made a really good match between mushrooms and the biology of mushrooms to uses like more than an ingredient, like an experience. I really love to say that Joaquin turns the ingredient into an experience because he'll teach me how to smell. He teach me how to taste. So basically now, if something is bad, I always say like, Joaquin, but that's another story. So Joaquin is gonna prepare us a really good dinner. He's also gonna teach us about mycological astronomy and why it's important to understand the mycology to go to the cuisine. So yeah, basically he's gonna be our culinary director. So yeah, that's really excited because he's a really busy man. But also we're gonna work with Rodolfo Castellanos, that is one of the best chefs in Oaxaca as well. He's from there and he knows Ixtlan really, really well. So basically, going with him is traveling into the experience of pick the ingredients, choose everything, and yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And well, when you read the article that they made, you're gonna be really jealous about some dishes that Rodolfo and Joaquin made. So once again, book your place right now, so you're not gonna be jealous. But yeah, basically that's our program. So if you have any questions, I can respond at the end.
So I wanted to throw this up. This is actually on our website, which is thefundravore.com/NAMAMX26. Nama underscore MX26. This is right on the front. But I wanted to call it, there's actually some differences this year. The price is including this year the hotels at the first and final night in Oaxaca City, which it didn't do last year. That's if you're staying with the hotels that we're booking. If you want to get your own Airbnb or stay longer, that's on you. But so pretty much it's all expenses from the time we start our opening dinner through the last dinner with Rodolfo. This is sort of an all expenses paid trip this year. We really wanted to make it really accessible for folks to come down and have everything kind of taken care of, so you can be on vacation while you nerd out. So if you want more information, you can see all this on our website as well as the itinerary of day-to-day itinerary. But we thought we'd talk a little bit about more than just the lectures. You know, it's so much more than that because EcoTour Ixtlan is just such a phenomenal host, not to mention others. And I thought I would let Dave talk a little bit about this. Kim and I have realized that we've sort of normalized some of the experiences that happen in Mexico, having been living here now for 4 years. And it's really awesome to hear somebody's first time experience and how it came to them first. So I'm going to let Dave talk about some of this.
Well, thank you both, Ireri and Zachary. Yeah, I'm just going to look at these four little pictures that we're looking at on the NAMAMX spotlight, and the food. Of course, Ireri's talked about some fantastic chefs, and Joaquin was the one that cooked our trout for us, and that was, I love fishing for trout and other things with my son, and so it was just really a fun experience, just having such a variety of food. And even just as I went into Oaxaca City, their fast food is like the best restaurants in Clinton, which is Clinton, Iowa, where I live. Anyway, Monte Alban was amazing in a lot of different ways, and it's just interesting on how much things just kind of go full circle. For instance, it's the first recorded mountaintop removal. Of course, we don't remove mountains to make temples and homes and things like that, or, you know, to make cities or actually sacred cities, because the people from the common people were living down below, and they weren't there. But I just thought it was very interesting how that was actually they not only cut the mountaintop off, they paved it over. They adobe'd over the whole thing so that the temple priests and the governors and all that didn't have to touch nature at all. And it just seems like sometimes things just go full circle, because I think that's what we want to do in America now. The Eco Ixtlan, the ecotourism center was just delightful. Um, I especially enjoyed that the people that took care of the place were taking care of the place. Um, a, a lot of them were doing it as a volunteer service in order to be part of their community and to share in the resources of a shared community. And it was, we saw places where they were milling the wood to make different items, furniture, things like that. The restaurants that we went to were run by the community. And an amazing thing that we went to that I'm not even going to really say exactly what it was, but it was amazing. It was up on the mountains, and that was also part of the communities. They were communally owned in the autonomous communities. The 70% of the forests in Oaxaca are owned communally by the autonomous communities. And so even though there's so many different languages spoken there is this thread going all the way back to the beginning, all the way back before Monte Alban, of the sacredness of the land, the sacredness of the forest, the sacredness of the mushrooms, the animals, and it rubs off on you. It is so obvious how when forests are run by are taken care of by people that love them, the people that think of them as sacred, then those forests thrive. And I've written an article that I'm sure Brooke's tearing his hair out trying to get it edited down to something reasonable. But it's titled A Shared Purpose in a Sacred Land. And I didn't come up with that title. We were split up into different groups going up on the mountains for our forays. I think there was 3 groups. And we were group 2. Ireri was in that group with me, and so was Brooke and a number of the other folks. And while we're on this open truck bus, I don't even know what you call it, but it took us up the mountain, and we're having fun yelling duck because it was open, and tree branches, the small pine boughs were coming in, and it was all totally harmless and fun, but it was also magical. It was magical seeing people wafting in and out of the mists, kneeling down on the ground, examining the mushrooms that they saw. And it's interesting how there's a similarity between looking carefully for the mycelium at the base of a mushroom and also just finding something sacred, finding something reverent right there in the dirt, right in the soil, that it's all like that. When the people from down in the village came up and visited us, that to me was an exciting thing. I honestly, I was there more for the people than the mushrooms. I love the mushrooms. But when I'm going to some place that's so new to me, and I really haven't done this kind of traveling, the people, getting every chance I get to know some of them is to me the biggest treasure. And I was not denied at all that treasure. It was the people like Celestino, people like Ireri, people, the chefs that were with us. and then going into a mezcal distillery. That was so fun. I always knew from the time I was too young to drink mezcal that I loved it. I never realized that it didn't have to have a worm in the bottom of the bottle.
Well, we should be doing at least a tasting at some point during this time as well. Um, so I actually would love to turn this over to Kim, who's been patiently waiting here to talk a little bit more about that community event that we had. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, Zach just asked me to, speak a little bit on this call and talk a little bit about our engagement with the community. So we're really excited to be returning to a second year to Ixtlan. Last year, I had the opportunity to do mushroom dyeing presentation and also a table for all the people to come. On the last day, our last full day in Ixtlan this year, as well as last year, we'll be having a community fair, which is when we have not only a table talk for our participants, but we also have our Mexican mycologists on hand to have conversations with any local community members. There's announcements made in the communities that surround the ecotourism center that invite everybody to come and see what it is that we found in their forest and for them to tell us what they know about it. And this year, I'm really excited. I'll be coming back again to do mushroom dyeing, creating a rainbow of color. And the women this last year asked if we could do a community-based workshop. So this year, I'll also be doing mushroom dyeing, but we'll be doing a mixed workshop with both our NAMA participants and local community members that want to learn more about mushroom dyeing. And we're also going to be doing the same with culinary as well, because Lay also expressed an interest in learning more about ways of cooking culinarily with mushrooms. So we're really excited to go back to Ixtlan and engage with the community again for a second year and also bring back programming that they would like to see to make it a richer experience for everybody.
It's one of our main principles at the Fungivore is that while we are in the forest of the community, anybody and everybody from the community is welcome to join us. We work with Mexican mycologists or mycologists that are often fluent in Spanish, and or one of us explains to the community any questions as well. And because now we're this is our seventh year of doing this in 8 seasons. We have sort of a number of communities have asked us to come back the following year with cultivation workshops, or as Kim said, to learn specifically the dye mushrooms of the area. So that's something that we've really been focusing on a lot. I know Ireri does that a lot also with the Picacu community and the Matlatzinca communities in the state of Mexico. And this is something I think Mara will address more, sort of how do you interact with the communities that are hosting you, because it is something that is reaching sort of a fever pitch of need to learn from the folks that have been taking care of these forests, as Dave said, for millennia. In a world that is rapidly speeding towards sort of some crises, having this sort of wisdom and knowledge is really important. So to finish up just about this event, I think these are some of the highlights. I'll just go through them really fast, but this is a 7-night event that spans sort of 8 days, with the opening day being our opening dinner and welcome, and then we'll check out on the last day. We don't have any events that day, but we'll be staying at Ecotourism for 5 of those nights, one night each on each end in Oaxaca City. We go all the way up to 10,000 feet to a forest that we were told last year was a cloud forest. It since has been revised. They don't actually know the name of it now. I've been to the actual cloud forest. It's about 5,000 feet on the other side in La Chinantla, where Dr. Alexander is coming from. Absolutely phenomenal. Not that far, also from Ixtlan. But this area was one of the main feedbacks we got from almost everybody was, I wish I could have spent more time in this forest. And so this year we will be spending more time in that forest, all of the groups, with considerable more time to look at the biodiversity and everything up there. A big part of this, just like every NAMA event, is vouchering and also training on iNaturalists to help people understand how and why the recording of these mushrooms is so important, not just for the communities, but also for Mexico, for the universities, and for this cross-country continental exchange that we've been setting up through NAMAMX to have the Chicago Field Museum work with several of the universities throughout Mexico. And last year and this year, it sounds like we're working with the University of Querétaro through Dr. Andres. And he was, Ireri said he's an expert and a nerd. He is also a loving teddy bear with full of jokes and one of the funniest human beings and fun human beings to be around as well. He makes nerding fun, like really fun. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people leave here with new friends. We had people from I think 25 different states last year, as well as Canada, and tons of folks from Mexico, from all over the country of Mexico. This is where you see the lectures and the panels. You learn about forest stewardship. You learn about the local biodiversity projects that are going on, what it means to be a nature guide in the area. As Kim said, we have the community fair where we invite as many of the locals as wish to come. I imagine we'll actually have a better turnout this year when people know what they're getting into. And that'll be vendors and artisans, and you'll be able to pick up all kinds of crafts. We have shared meals all the time at the restaurant up there that the community, as Dave says, is cooking for us, and also our chefs on hand as well to explore sort of the regular day-to-day cuisine of Oaxaca, as well as some of the hot cuisine, the haute cuisine that earned Oaxaca some Michelin stars in these last couple of years. And of course, it's all the mycologists that Ireri talked about. Plus, a lot of our attendees are nerds and super smart among themselves. And so, if you want to come and learn just everything about mushrooms and mycology, this is just an amazing immersion with some very, very awesome and intelligent folks. So that is pretty much all we can say about the event. I mean, it is something else. Here's a couple what some folks from last year said about this event as well. And we're so thrilled to be able to do this again. We've got word that it's reserved. We're ready to go. The community is really excited to have us back this year, having sort of done a test last year. And so now we can turn it over to some questions and comments. If you do want to learn more, there's a ton more information at the website at thefungivore.com. And you can find the NAMA event in the drop-down window, or NAMA_MX26. Dave's article is going to give a ton of detail, not just on the event itself, but on the impressions that it lasted, the lasting impressions for him, sort of what he's talking about, the sacred. You can see the rainbow there. I did not plan that. This is actually this is in the Mancomunados, which is where Celestino and Timo are doing their study. Right across underneath my QR code there is actually the town of Ixtlan, over there on the other side of the mountains. You can't see it. But yeah, we'll turn that over to questions, and maybe Ken can jump back in and help us if there were any questions that were put up in the chat, or if you have some now, go ahead and do that. Paging Ken. Let's see, I'll scroll through.
Ken, I'll just.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, Ireri caught a lot of there was a question about what exactly is a rainforest.
Oh, what is a cloud forest? That is a good question.
Cloud forest, yeah. Sorry.
I wish we had Celestino here. So the cloud forest is on the Caribbean side, or sorry, the Gulf side of the Oaxacan Mountains, there's a lot of moisture because it's more tropical and hot, and a lot of moisture comes from that area. And the clouds, since the mountains go up from 0 to 10,000 feet in 40 kilometers of actual, as the crow flies distance, those clouds get trapped. And so they hang out between 6,500 feet and 4,000 feet, and it is just wet. It is always wet. There we stayed at some cabins up there recently exploring where we're going to do our orchid tour and possibly some stuff in the future in La Chinantla. And at first, what I thought was palm trees was tree ferns. And that is actually one of the definitions of a cloud forest, is that you have to have tree ferns. And Celestino said another definition is you cannot count the species of trees. It's just an absolute mix of every kind of tree, and it's so dense with vines, you can't even get through the forest to count the trees. So this is really, you can't see the trees for the forest, flipping the metaphor on its head. So where we were, where it is called the Mesophylla, or the cloud forest, is actually misnamed. And right now there is a debate as to what that region is going to be called, because it is twice as high in altitude as the actual cloud forest, but is itself a super unique and really interesting area that has all kinds of deer moss and interesting parasitic plants and all kinds of different mushrooms than were down below. Yeah, it's phenomenal. So I'm not sure what to call it. It's not a cloud forest. We don't know yet.
Zach, they're going to be going there in 26 here, probably right about when the black trumpets are all going to be, the Greater Ellis are all going to be fruiting about then.
We hope so. We love those. For those who love the Crater Ellis or have been out in California to pick any of the Crater Ellis cornucopioides, they have sort of a bluish sort of shine on them. The ones in Mexico are pink. They have a pink outside, and it's the Crater Ellis phalanx, as well as several of the Crater Ellis that we don't even know the names of yet. So yeah, it's pretty cool down there, I gotta say. I'd say if my training is as a chef. I think if I were to do this again as a mycologist, Crater Ellis would be what I would want to study. I'm absolutely fascinated by those. Let's see. Oh yes, Ireri posted in the comment section. So we're going to have presentations both in English and in Spanish, and we will have a professional translator there to go both ways to help with that, to make sure that our Spanish-speaking attendees and community guests will also be able to enjoy some of the English lectures and vice versa. Is there an open date for the registration? It is open now.
When
Oh,
will
yeah.
when will
If
you
you
be
guys go to
accepting registration?
thefungivore.com, you can fill out an application. The process is that you need to tell us a little bit about yourself just so we know what's going on. This is where you can tell us about your fear of heights, if you have allergies, or if you you're coming with a group of 4 people, or however you just tell us about you, what you're into, and then we'll reach out. You can indicate on there if you want to have a phone call with us. We can talk even more about anything, dietary restrictions, what you expect to find, whatever. We love talking about mushrooms and this stuff. And absolutely, we tolerate vegetarians. Are there vegetarians among the indigenous? You know, one of the communities that we go to, not with this event, but another event that we go to frequently, is a vegetarian community. They actually are a wheat growing village and generally eat vegetarian except for big events. I mean, they're not specifically vegetarian, I guess, but generally that's, it's
But Ecotour Ixalan does have a vegetarian menu, and
Yeah.
then from last year we also request that our vegetarians get plenty of beans and cheese and eggs and
Yeah.
other proteins to
Yeah.
help supplement where you may not eat meat.
Yeah.
And
But that's
also
also
Mexico
where
is
this
really friendly.
application comes in.
Yeah, but let us know in the application. It helps us pre-arrange and make sure that dietary vegetarians are, once we know in advance, we arrange with our chefs and we make sure that everyone's taken care of. We don't want anyone to feel like a burden.
There was one that just popped into the Q&A about the ranking of Oaxaca in global or national mushroom biodiversity.
Oh, that
Know what
is
this
what we'll
ranking
be
is?
answering at the event.
No, but I can send you guys. Actually, it's really interesting because the last paper about the biodiversity of fungi in Mexico, it's now really old. It's from 2014.
Hmm.
So yeah, now I'm gonna check like really fast because I know Oaxaca is mentioned here. No, it's not mentioned, but I can find it and I can send it.
I mean, there's a couple things to understand about when you say diversity of mushrooms is that places like the UK or places that had a lot of funding for mycology have had a lot of funding to study and submit papers and put in names. And so right now, the UK has more mushrooms listed than Mexico as a country. Mexico is a biodiverse country or a megadiverse country that clearly is not a factual basis in terms of what the biodiversity is. And that's partly what makes it so exciting is that a lot of these areas, and one of the things that NAMA and we talked about with Dave last year, is that bringing in and sort of crowdsourcing this observational energy, we actually get to submit into the universities in Mexico mushrooms that may not be described yet, probably aren't described yet. Probably 90% of them aren't actually described yet. And so NAMAMX is one of the purposes, one of the shared purposes, is to document these mushrooms by using this group effort to really scour the forest and to find everything we can. Because we have people that love the tiny mushrooms, we have people that love the slime molds, we have people that love all the various things. So it's really a neat opportunity for everyone to throw all of their knowledge together.
Yeah, NAMA helps support the science that is the biodiversity of Mexico.
Right.
It's really like getting more resources for science into Mexico so that's in the scientific record to have that diversity like in the systems by Mexican mycologists.
Bruce, you asked what are the cabins like? The cabins are what we call rustic chic. They are really nice. They're adobe brick cabins. They have usually have a matrimony or a double bed, and then either one bunk or two. They each have their own bathrooms. They are set up in sort of a L shape. So this is one cabin and one cabin next to each other. There are 12 cabins above, and I think another 6 or 8, maybe another 12 down below, kind of spread out. They're pretty cool. I have to say, they all have a fireplace. They bring the wood in at night and light the fire for you before you go to bed. The beds are very comfortable. There's plenty of blankets, and they each have their own kind of living room area, both inside and outside, to hang out, and outdoor fire pits as well if it's not raining. There are several nights that went late at various people's outdoor fire pits as during the event as well. So I can't hear you, Dave. I don't know if you're muted.
No, I said sorry about drinking all your mezcal that one night.
That's why we brought it.
Let's see. Then we had another question.
Are there traveling arrangements from Mexico City to Oaxaca City? Everyone is responsible for getting themselves to Oaxaca City and from. The flights between Mexico City and Oaxaca City are pretty common and happen many, many times a day. Yeah, so that's the main thing. Getting to our getting to the hotel that you'll be checking into is your responsibility. It's very easy to get from the Oaxaca City airport into Centro, and we have a document on our website that details all of this in nauseating detail as well. Extensive. I'm sorry. Let's see. Any other questions that I'm missing? Doesn't look like it. So if anyone else has any other questions, I'm actually not looking at Q&A, Ken. I don't know if anything's in there.
There was just that one about the diversity, but that's it.
All right. Well, so yeah, if you are interested in this, please do fill out an application. We are doing a little bit different this year. We are going to be filling as many beds as we can this year. And so there is an option on there to say what your preference is, if you're willing, unwilling to take a top bunk or a bunk, or how you are. If you're coming with several people, now is a good time to get that application in. We're definitely getting interest. A lot of our other events, we have several events throughout the year. Several of them are more than halfway full. Some are sold out already. So we expect this one to be getting a lot of attention soon.
How many folks do you expect?
We are shooting. There's a question to Bruce Plank said, how many folks are we expecting on this trip? I believe we had 15 guest mycologists last year from around Mexico, and 30 participants. We're shooting to get up to 45 participants, so maximum 60 people for this event. And it'll be a go from 30 attendees on. I mean, it's a go. So yeah, so not huge. The website is thefungivore.com. I'll write it in here again.
Ken just sent it too.
Oh, great.
I did too.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You can do it one more time.
All right.
It's a charm.
Look at that. Third time's a charm.
Also, too.
And then if you go to the NAMA website, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I was just going to say exactly that the NAMA event or the NAMA website also has it on their event pages.
Yeah. So if you go to the event pages, you can see, yeah, the upcoming, both on the calendar and in the listings. So yeah, well, if that is it, if there are any questions that come up after we end this talk, of course, please feel free to email info@thefungivore, Zach@thefungivore. We'll answer any questions you have. The best way, of course, to get our attention is fill out that application. We'll know a lot more about you. You can indicate that you want to have a phone call with us, and we'll get that set up so you can talk to us personally. We like to make ourselves available for folks, and just to really let you know about Mexico and how much we love that. And I'm sure Ireri would love to be reached out as well for more specific questions on Mexico and mycology here.
I just found a paper that I talked to you about the edible species, but it's in Spanish. I'm gonna send it if you're curious as well and wanna practice your Spanish for our trip in September.
So for those who didn't get that, there's a link now in the chat with the paper that she was just talking about.
Yeah, it's probably basically impossible to judge the biodiversity because it just isn't studied, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
can't really compare it to most of the rest of the world.
Yeah, you just have to get amongst it.
But in last year's presentations, and it might be mentioned this year, when you look at some of the data in these areas, if you applied the same amount of scientific resources with
Yeah.
the data they're seeing, we would see an incredible diversity number jump
Yeah.
in Mexico if you were to
Right.
like correlate the data. So there was some really interesting presentations last year about
Yeah.
it, and we will definitely explore it again this year because there is an interesting thing to explore is whether, your category as a country is determined by the amount of scientific resources you have available.
I think that's something that really made me feel like I was doing something important, part of something important down there, because it's something that's growing. I don't know if it's a ground floor, but
Yeah.
Mexico is a place where there's so much to learn and so much to be shared. And I'm looking forward to there again, that's for sure.
I think
Great.
the mushroom world is really great for people who want to just get involved because anybody can make a contribution,
Yeah.
and it's very open that way. So, yeah, taking a
And
Oaxacan tour.
100%, Bruce, beginners absolutely can come. I mean, I can't think of a better immersion to really get, not just from the mycologist view, but also from the cultural view and also what it looks like to have these forests that have been taken care of. So please, please do come as a beginner. I think you will leave not as much as a beginner.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. It was great to see your comments, and please reach out. We'd love to talk mushrooms and nerds in Mexico. And I believe this will be recorded and up on the YouTube here pretty soon. So, yeah, we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.